Welcome to Behind the Law with Justin Clark, the show that takes you behind the law and answers your toughest legal questions.
Hey, welcome to Behind the Law, featuring attorney Justin Clark from attorneys Gregory and Clark right over there in Longwood. And we're taking your calls right now at 407-297-9696 or 855-297-9696. Of course, we welcome our listeners on News Talk 96.5 WDBO, but also our television audience on TV 27 WRDQ. And Justin, a lot has happened in the mortgage industry over the past week. It's been exciting.
It's crazy. Every week something happens. I mean, the show is actually fun because every week we have something new to talk about. It's not like I have to go back and look for something to talk about. It's crazy.
Well, and one of the things that happens is so many people are taking advice from the brother-in-law. They're taking advice from some late-night talk show, and they're not getting the true information on short sales, bankruptcies, and timing is everything. If our listeners have learned anything over the past 2 years, it should be that if you don't have an attorney on your side giving you the timing of this, you are liable to lose not just thousands, you could lose hundreds of thousands.
Like in a lot of businesses, this internet has popped up and all these blogs, and you see everyone has a different take on it. I don't trust blogs, let me tell you. How about you?
Anybody can put anything on the internet.
And you need to talk to someone who's down in the trenches, doing this every day, and they really know what's going on because things change daily, they change weekly, and you really just never know. You've got to talk to someone who's doing it all the time, every day, 7 days a week.
There's been some changes since, of course, we extended the Debt Relief Act.
Thank God.
Thank goodness our listeners were emailing and calling and getting that done. There have been some changes, but still, there's a word in the air that seems to be tossed about too easily these days. And back in our grandparents and our parents' generation, you never heard of foreclosures or bankruptcies. Now, you're hearing about it all the time, and people are claiming bankruptcy like they're going out to McDonald's.
And we're very, very conservative when we recommend someone file bankruptcy, but there are times where bankruptcy is just simply the right thing to do. And, I always enjoy sitting down and figuring out a plan for people to get their life back on track, get their financial life back on track. Because, Rob, what I've noticed is when your financial life is off track, it seems like your personal life takes a hit too.
Yep.
And I can't tell you how many clients I have who are getting divorced because of their financial issues, and it really hurts my heart, man, because I assure you there's some ways around it. There are some things you can do to fix it. I get a lot of people coming in saying, I can do this bankruptcy on my own. Let me give you a piece of advice. Don't do it. It's complicated. You really have to know what you're doing. At Chapter 7 bankruptcy, and we can get into the different types of bankruptcy here shortly, a chapter bankruptcy is somewhat of a seamless process for you. However, doing it yourself, you can create a lot of problems for yourself that you can compound the problems you already have. And I don't want you to do that.
It must seem, though, to a lot of people, Justin, that it just may seem like such a simple thing. They get the phone calls every night at dinner. They're fighting with their wife. They're fighting with the kids. They're kicking the dog. And they get another phone call. And these companies are getting worse at collecting money. They're screaming at you. They're telling you you're going to lose everything. And so you think, I see an ad there or a plastic sign beside 441 that says bankruptcy, $750. Oh, I can do that.
Sure.
Hell, my problems will be gone. Your
Right.
problems may just be beginning.
You can make it worse, and you don't want to do that. Bankruptcy is a very serious thing. It's a serious step in your life, and you need to think long and hard, and you need to get some advice from someone who knows what they're doing as to whether it's really the right way, because let me be honest with you, there are a lot of other options, too, to avoid bankruptcy. Bankruptcy is not for everybody, but it is for some people, and it can really change some people's life. Let's say you're 60 years old. And you just retired, and you have $50,000 in credit card debt, and you're going to be living off Social Security starting in 2 or 5 years. You're never going to be able to pay that back. Sometimes a bankruptcy is the right thing to do, but you need to talk to a professional who knows what they're doing. If you have any sort of other case going on, be very careful and talk to someone.
And, of course, you pointed out that bankruptcy does have its place sometimes in the housing problems, but it has to be done at the right time in the right situation, or it may derail you altogether. Now, we're taking calls right now. If you all want to call in on the show, 407-297-9696 or 855-297-9696. If you call now, you'll hear yourself on TV, which would be kind of cool.
And I've got to thank someone, Rob. First of all, I've got to thank you for being here. But this is quite a production now. Laura Lee here runs the board. We got Scott Richards over in the studio next door taking your calls and running another board. I have Anthony here. I have Ted. I have Ryan all behind the cameras. It takes a lot to make this happen, but man, I appreciate everyone being here.
It takes a lot to put this all together, and we appreciate you all watching as well. I've gotten so many emails this last week. And people
Me too.
watched it on TV, even one as far north as Missouri who somehow picked it up. Must
Get
pick it up
out
on
of
YouTube
here.
or something.
I must be.
I don't know.
Ask your question live. Tune into FM 96.5 WDBO Sundays at noon and ask Justin your question.
I can't sue anybody, but can I sue my mortgage company?
And I tell them at the onset, I say, look, if you do go and file bankruptcy, you're going to lose control of your case. That's a really dangerous thing to happen to a client.
Stay tuned. Justin Clark will be right back with more Behind the Law. Welcome back to Behind the Law, the show that takes you behind the law and answers your toughest legal questions.
But one of the most important things before you consider filing bankruptcy, to me, is you need to see if you have any other kind of case going on, any other kind of litigation. And I want to welcome to the air Matt Morgan. You probably heard of Morgan & Morgan.
Yes,
Matt, are you there? Can you hear us? Matt, are you there, buddy?
Yeah, Justin, how you doing, man?
Good. Thanks for coming on the program. Now, Matt, how do people reach you if they need to ask you any questions to follow up on our talk today?
They can reach me at Matt Morgan at forthepeople.com. That's F-O-R, no spaces or dash. It's just Matt Morgan at forthepeople.com. Or they can get me on my direct dial at 407-244-3211.
Let me tell you something about Matt, Rob. Okay. You know, I think Matt's going to have the perception probably growing up in the law business like he has, growing up in such a big firm, such a well-known and excellent firm like Morgan & Morgan. People in Central Florida are probably going to think Matt has just said, has had it handed to him. Matt is one of the hardest working lawyers that I know, and he cares. Just like me, he cares about his clients so much. It's unbelievable. And Matt, you got to be proud of yourself, man. I know you probably don't want to sit here and gloat about yourself, but I'm proud of you, and I look forward to taking over the legal community around here with you, buddy.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, Justin. I really do. There's a lot of hard work that goes into working for our clients, as you know firsthand. And you really can't take days off, and you really can't take many nights off. But at the end of the day, it turns into a great result for our clients. So I think this hard work definitely pays off.
All right. Now, let's say, Matt, you have a client who has a personal injury case going on. Let's say they had a car accident, they have significant injuries, but also they have no money. They can't work. They have no money, ton of debt. And they come and say, Matt, I want to file bankruptcy. What do you say?
Well, ultimately, that happens all the time because these car accidents and these slip and falls and these accidents that we deal with our clients on a regular basis tend to throw people into financial ruin. Reason being, they have to make trips to the doctor's office. They have to pay for the gas to get there. They have to pay for the treatment for the doctors. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it turns into a situation where they're spending all this money, and on top of it all, they can't work. And so they come to me and they say, Matt, I'm contemplating filing for bankruptcy. What do you think about that? And I always tell them that it's not in their best interest, and we'll get into why.
Now I'm sure you've had a situation, and when we meet with a bankruptcy client, we always ask if they have a case going on as well. But unfortunately, as you know, sometimes clients aren't totally honest, and they might have gone to that blog and read something that said, oh, just don't tell your lawyer about it and do it. Have you ever had a situation where you had a personal injury case and that client did file bankruptcy?
We have. And ultimately, what generally speaking happens is the client loses control of their case. And we tell them at the onset, because they'll always ask us about it. And I tell them at the onset, I say, look, if you do go and file bankruptcy, you're going to lose control of your case. That's a really dangerous thing to happen to a client because they step out of their shoes as the client and really take the back seat. And then the trustee on the bankruptcy estate steps in and starts driving. And ultimately, they make all decisions related to the case, and the client loses control over their case.
So you're telling me that if someone has a case going on, whether it's a case against Pfizer or any sort of drug case that could take years, the Chinese drywall type things, or even a regular personal injury case. So if they were to file bankruptcy, then the bankruptcy trustee now steps in to the place of your client, and they make all the decisions. Is that how it works?
Exactly. And so what will happen on a periodic basis is the trustee will call me and they'll say, what's the status of the case? Where are you? Are there any offers on the table? And when do you foresee this case resolving? And I'll have to tell them whatever offers are on the table, and essentially it's the state of the case. And so what happens is, say, for example, I've got a few clients right now that have had surgical procedures performed, and they have an outstanding bankruptcy estate. At any point in time, the trustee on the bankruptcy estate can come to me and say, what's the existing offer? And if the existing offer is $50,000, they can tell me, Matt, I want to take that to satisfy my bankruptcy estate, shut the case down. And then what happens? The client is stuck with all these medical bills from having a surgical procedure performed, and then they get nothing at the end of the day except, more debt, unfortunately.
I think the moral of the story here is, Newt, if you're out there and you're doing a personal injury case or any sort of case, and you have an attorney and you're considering filing bankruptcy, because Matt makes a great point. The people who have been injured, who can't work, those are the people who don't have any money, because they're not able to work. So you can see why we get a lot of the same clients in the bankruptcy office as you do the personal injury office. Don't do it. You need to listen to your lawyer, and you need to think very hard about filing a bankruptcy if you have any other case going on, because it's going to screw up your case.
Yeah.
That's what I found out.
And Justin, you're 100% correct. And at the beginning, I always tell them, look, don't do it. At least consult with me if you're going to do it so we can figure out and I can explain to you all the ramifications of doing it. But more times than not, I'll find out that they've done it when the bankruptcy estate trustee calls me and says, look, Matt, your client filed bankruptcy, and then we have to deal with it. Oh. And but definitely, you're 100% correct. Do not do it. Avoid it at all costs if you do have a pending lawsuit.
Well, Matt, we really appreciate you coming on the show today. I look forward to working with you in the future. And next time, we'll get you here in the studio, okay?
All right. Thanks so much, Justin. I appreciate it.
Take care, brother.
Ask your question live. Tune into FM 96.5 WDBO Sundays at noon and ask Justin your question.
If you can sue anybody, but can I sue my mortgage company?
What in the world were these people doing and or thinking during the foreclosure plunge? I mean, were they really doing things that now the government says you were so wrong it's going to cost you $8.5 billion?
Stay tuned. Justin Clark will be right back with more Behind the Law. Welcome back to Behind the Law, the show that takes you behind the law and answers your toughest legal questions.
10 banks agreeing to pay back $8.5 billion, with a B, $billion for foreclosure abuse. What is abuse?
This is the second such settlement that we've seen. The first one was in June of 2012, and that one did have an effect on the loan modifications. The 5 largest servicers back in 2012 participated in the national mortgage settlement, meaning they have to pay people money who they wrongfully foreclosed upon, or do modifications for people who they were trying to wrongfully foreclose on who haven't gotten foreclosed upon yet. But it was only the 5 largest servicers. Now we're going to add some names to the mix, and I got it right here, and I don't see any reason why I can't say their names because it's public knowledge. We've got Citigroup, MetLife Bank, and I don't like to read to you, but just please allow me 1 second. PNC Financial Services, Sovereign, SunTrust, and Aurora Loan Servicing. So now we've got more people who, if you want to stay in your home, even if you're not behind right now, we might be able to do a modification because the government is forcing them now to work better with you on this modification. Modifications suck. It's a part-time job for people who try to do it. They get the runaround, and it's just not fun.
What were these, when you see the big monster towers in the downtowns, and some of these people are represented in O-Town and others in Jacksonville and Atlanta, but a lot of people in Central Florida were affected by loans for these people and foreclosures. What in the world were these people doing and or thinking during the foreclosure plunge? I mean, were they really doing things that now the government says you were so wrong it's going to cost you $8.5 billion?
You're exactly right. What they were doing oftentimes is signing documents fraudulently. They would literally have someone sitting at a desk signing thousands and thousands all day long, and it wasn't right. And then they would foreclose and kick families out of their house. These children were walking to school, and they would come home, and they would have no home to go to. They would be locked out of their house wrongfully. And that's what this settlement's all about. The settlement's still not good enough, I don't think. I don't think we're doing enough for the people who got screwed over here, but it's something. And I think now, because the housing market's coming back a little bit, if you want to keep your house, now is the best time over the last 4 years to modify your loan because they're forcing them to do better modifications and treat you a little more responsibly, a little more.
You know what bothers me about this?
No.
Some of these heavy hitters on this list and the list above it are people that got the big bailouts from the government in the first place.
Yes, they did. And
Too big to fail, remember that?
I saw a movie about that recently, too.
So I guess they're just giving back some of the money they got in the loan. It is so important for you to make sure that you have got the help of an attorney at any time that you're delving into short sales, modifications, of course, bankruptcy. But even, I feel, if you're just going to buy a conventional home and go for a conventional loan, you need to have somebody in your corner that will read the fine print, and that is the attorney. Also, you'll find with Justin Clark that you can refer them to the Under One Roof people like Robert Palmer, people that can get the job done.
Buying a home is very important, too. And I think there's a lot of nonsense going on out there, especially with all the foreclosures that have happened. And our Under One Roof program, it's oneroofprogram.com. We handle the entire process for people for a very low flat fee. We deal with the credit issues, handle all of those contract negotiations through the realtor. Who pays for the termite bond? Do I need to pay the closing costs? Who pays the realtor commissions? That sort of thing, because people have been getting pushed around in this town for a long, long time.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to find them a low-rate mortgage with no fees. No fees at all, please. And maybe most importantly, sit at that closing table with them. Make sure no one throws a piece of paper out there at the last second and says, well, if you want the house, you better sign here. We're not going to let the pushing around in Orlando is over, pal.
Mm-hmm. You know, I remember my first closing, and the stack of papers was literally like that. And they just pass them around the table. Sign.
Yeah.
Sign. And I would say, well, what am I signing here?
Don't worry about it.
And the attorney for Barnett Bank would keep looking across the table and going, just sign it. Just sign it. Well,
it's
you know
scary.
what? There was a balloon due in the 5th year.
Oh, yeah. You go to sell it. You go to sell it in 2 years, and they're like, "Oh, you didn't know there's a $10,000 prepayment penalty?" No, no one explained that to me.
Didn't know that.
Because who really does take the time to read that huge stack of papers, and it gets a lot of people in trouble. You know?
It certainly does.
Tune into FM 96.5 WDBO Sundays at noon and ask Justin your question.
You can sue anybody, but can I sue my mortgage company?
Stay tuned. Justin Clark will be right back with more Behind the Law. Welcome back to Behind the Law, the show that takes you behind the law and answers your toughest legal questions.
If you want to call us, 407-297-9696 or 855-297-9696. Also, as long as you've got your pencil and paper out of your iPad, how do they get a hold of you during the week?
Gregory-Clark.com is a great place to start. 321-282-1055. And Rob Newton, I forgot to welcome one more person to the program today. Yeah. That's Tony Mata, who's back in the studio, who really put all this TV, radio together. It was a lot of work for him and his boss, Mario Mendoza, and I appreciate them doing that.
He's a hard-working guy. Henry in Lake Mary, how can we help you, sir?
Henry, are you there?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yep. I wonder if I could sue my, I know we live in the USA, you can sue anybody, but can I sue my mortgage company?
For what?
Monies that they received that did not apply to my loan.
Well, you can if that really happened, yes. I mean, a lot of people come in my office and say, I want to sue my bank. I want to get my house for free. And let me just tell you straight up, you're at the wrong law firm. I'm not in the getting your house for free business, but let's make no mistake, a lot of these banks did make mistakes along the way for people, and there are a lot of lawsuits going on. But there are also a lot of settlements that have taken place with the government requiring the banks to pay people money. It's not a lot of money, but they've also are requiring the banks to do principal reductions because of all of the missteps along the way in the last few years. Let's be honest. Let's just be totally honest here for a second, okay? The banks were giving away money in 2006. There's no question about it. You would walk in oftentimes and just sign a piece of paper. They didn't have to see anything. They were jumping over each other to give people money, right? And this is a problem because if you're going to get a mortgage, you should prove that you can pay the mortgage. The banks were making a ton of money off of you back in the day, but you were asking for the money too, right? So there are a lot of things going on that the government has made these banks do modifications for people. They've done a horrible job of modifications in the last several years, Since mid-2012, the modifications are getting better. If you're behind in your mortgage or can't afford it, now is the time to do a modification.
All right, very good. Thank you so much for the call. Let's go to Mark. Mark, right here in Orlando, what is your question for Attorney Justin Clark?
Yes, how are you?
Go ahead, Mark.
Well, my question was, I listened earlier about the bankruptcies and how you can get yourself in trouble and all. And the only advice I did not hear for your listeners, in my opinion, was to say that there's all types of insurance. Obviously, the person probably had auto insurance, but didn't think to have himself a disability policy.
Hey, Mark.
Which in the event that,
What do you do for a living, Mark? You sell disability insurance?
No, I'm a retired accountant.
Okay, I got you.
I'll tell you, no, I lost my parents. The way I learned is I lost my parents at a very young age. I was working.
And I think it's a wonderful idea, and I'm really glad you called in to tell the listeners that, because it is important. But it's a lot easier for someone who works at a big company. Let's say, just to give you an example, my uncle worked at Walgreens as a pharmacist, and he now has all sorts of problems, and he's okay now because he had the disability through his company. Now, the regular guy who's out there on the roof, who's half the time probably getting paid in cash, it's not that easy, okay? And I talk to the regular person out there who's just trying to scrape by, man. They're going to business washing cars to try to make a couple bucks. Disability insurance is a great idea, Mark. I agree with you. However, we can't be blindfolded and realize that some people just aren't capable of paying for it. And that's the problem. And that's a lot of the clients that I see. But good idea.
Thank you for watching Behind the Law with Justin Clark. Be sure to join us again next week as Justin takes you behind the law and answers your legal questions.